you for being here. And, it's a very nice feeling to be at home, actually. So first of all, I would like to say that this is an ongoing project, research projects together with Magela Cotto from Universidad Nacional. So we will maybe finish the presentation with many questions and not so many answers, but it's also a nice opportunity actually to bring these doubts and questions that we have in order to find maybe some answers. This is, as I said, a research project. It's called CREO, that means in Spanish, believe and create. And the overall research question of the project is how low socioeconomic schools, high schools, can be transformed in learning for well-being high schools. I will elaborate a little bit more about these two. I am uncomfortable with this, sorry for a moment. To narrow this presentation, because this is a big project, is more about what is the role of technology for doing this transformation. And then actually this paper is specific about what systemic approach in terms of multiple changes at different levels could be used to deal with this transformation process. So when we talk about these socioeconomic status schools, we are talking about schools actually that are, most of the students are from families that have a very low income or low income, or also families or schools that are in a community with many issues, social problems, poverty, and many other social aspects that could be influencing the school. And there is a lot of research actually about how this socioeconomical aspect is influencing these schools. Some of them is talking about these families, for example, will have a lower academic achievement. So, and therefore the students actually, they don't have a role model to follow in the schools. The environment will affect a lot the growth and cognitive development of the students. We will have also students who, they will have less positive attitude to continue the education. That could be further education, I mean a technical education, or could be also higher education, like is the case here in Costa Rica. And we will have also that the environment will affect the students in the physical and emotional aspects. So that is the kind of the background that we have on this kind of high schools. But we also have, on the other hand, very nice promise and international and global expectation about what is education. And one of them, we could mention one is this Declaration 2015, where countries are encouraged actually to provide inclusive, quality education and long life learning opportunities. And they say for all. And then we will have this question, can we achieve that kind of aim? I mean, we also have the 4 pillars of UNESCO education. We talk a lot also about the 21st competences, things like critical thinking, solving problems, working collaborative, and so many of these things. In this conference, we have been hearing a lot of good examples about how to use technology and so on. So we have this kind of 2 scenarios. When we talk about this framework of learning for well-being in schools, it's a kind of a movement. I mean, that they are proposing a different way to understand education. I am not going to go deeper in the framework because the issue times, but I think we believe it's a good way to understand actually what is going on in this kind of schools and how the different elements influence each other. So I will mention here just 3 aspects of this framework. And the first one is actually this first aspect, that they see education as a whole process. It's not just about the cognitive aspects. It's about mental, spiritual, physical, and emotional. And many times when we talk actually about these spiritual aspects in countries like in Denmark, where I am living now, I mean, just forget it about. It's not part of our environment. But in countries like Costa Rica, we say we are a Christian country. Most of the people is Catholic, of another kind of Christian church. So they say, I mean, it doesn't matter about what kind of spiritual aspect, but there is a spiritual aspect as a human being. The other aspect that I want to mention is this influence. They talk about the self that will influence each other. They will influence also by the environment, but the environment will also influence the other people and the individual people. So it's a really connection always about these all elements. And then the other aspect is here about this framework that they talk about living in this system perspective. So that's actually, we could mention there again that about the whole person, the whole system, and actually the process itself. So that is a framework that when we were looking about this kind of schools, we're saying like, okay, this will explain many of the things that is going on in the schools and also may help about how to approach this kind of schools. A little bit details about the project that we are running now. As I mentioned, the project is in the high school in the south of Costa Rica. It's a small school. It's between 100 and 120 students, 12 teachers. It's an evening school. So the students actually go to school from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. The students here, I mean, the performance of the school is doing not that well. A lot of the students, they fail the national exam, and also there is a higher percent of dropout. The intervention that we are doing is action research projects. It means like we go through 4 phases about like planning, doing all the research. We implement some of the actions. We will collect data, analyze the data, and take the next decision about how the things are going. This aspect will be, when we do the evaluation about what to do next, is really in the good sense or in the good practice of action research, should be receive feedback from the theory. We started the project in April 2015, so far we have been working with them for 1.5 years. We have a lot of data. We have done, say, interviews with the with the teachers, with the director, with the students, with the parents. We have had workshops. We also had a training with the teachers and so on. In the data analysis, we are not done with that part. We have still a lot of data that we need to analyze. But for this paper, we were looking more about to understand the problem, where to start. I mean, like in action research, you say, okay, you understand the problem and take some actions. That is the point that we are with this at the moment with this paper. And we decide like, okay, it was more like how to cope with this situation. And we were looking at this actually complexity theory. And this complexity theory talks about this conceptualize the workings of not linear systems composed of multiple interacting and diverse elements that influence each other. The theory also talks about this change that is constant, and that is really important because the systems in these projects are really changing. And the other elements that they say is that nothing stands alone. So, and they talk about that we need to look at this interconnection and the interdependence of the all elements. In the part of education, when we talk about reform in education, The theory has been also used, and they talk about we need to look at the school reforms as evolving solutions. When we need to analyze actually all the levels, and we also need to look when the policy part that should be in the different levels. I mean, we, from this theoretical point of view, we really need to try to change the system in different aspects, levels at the same time. So what we did actually was like say, okay, now we are in this action research part, so we look at the data, what we have. So in this site is all the evidence from the data that we have. So we have things like lack of creativity and technology in the classroom. It's a very traditional classroom where the focus is the teacher, is the main actor during the whole class. We have lack of the time. Teacher doesn't have time. Students, they say that they don't have time. The director also say that they need to hand in many information to the Ministry of Education. They don't have time. We look at the organizational aspects, cultural, specifically organizational culture, and we see that there is not a culture of creating knowledge, sharing knowledge, or being what is called an organizational institution. It's not that it's a bad environment in the school. It's not that. It's just that there is not this practice. There is not interaction, communication actually with the families. Kind of the families send the kids to the school and this is your problem, and then it's not communication among them, not with the community neither. Low competences in the use of ICT. Teachers doesn't have actually that knowledge, neither about active learning. And then that plus that issue that they don't have time, so it's complicating more the things. And then there is not information management strategy, and is lack also of some management competencies. If we look at the theory in the other side, and I will just go a little bit quick here. So we have actually just the opposite scenario. I mean, like they say for this kind of, the literature said this kind of schools, we need to have an approach that is, the center is the students. We really focus on the student. We see, for example, in this conference, and many research and theories, the use of ICT will help a lot from the management point of view, but also from the teaching perspective. To prevent dropouts, we need to have high quality instruction. We need to have actually a community engagement. We need also to have a culture about sharing and creation of knowledge. From the organizational theory, we look at that for doing some kind of change. The culture is very important. The leadership is really a key aspect. As I mentioned before, we have all this about what are the competences that we need for the future of our students. And when we look at also in the organizational aspects of the use of technology, we will have also that really for the management part of the school, it's really important to use technology. So we see that a very complicated scenario, at least for me and for us. So we say where to start the change, how to deal with this complexity. We were saying, okay, should we promote a new pedagogical approach? But then the teachers said there is not the culture for that. Should we use the technology? But then there is not competences, so the culture itself is not, we need to do a change of the practice in the school, and then also we say, okay, maybe it's to change the organizational culture in the school, but then we see that also we will have problems with the leadership in the school, and also with the knowledge actually that is there in the organization. And when we were doing that, looking at these problems, we say that the complexity is not only in the different levels of the systems, trying to change the system, but also in the knowledge that we need to have. For each of the subsystems that we could identify, actually we will identify different theoretical perspectives that need to be used. So here I am presenting only 3 subsystems that we find there. We are not leading here with system that is a national system. I mean, all the policies from the Ministry of Education and also the local aspects. So when we look at the classroom subsystem, we say there is all the pedagogical theories that need to be applied. When we look at the culture of the school or the aspect of the school, we actually find that it's more organizational theories, more from how to manage the schools. And then when it's the community, the interaction with the families and the other schools and so on, so it's more development school. So if we have the research question about how technology could help us in this process, so that is what we were trying to do in this project. So we are thinking that we need to approach that like combining theories, different kind of theories with also different kind of systems. So we have these elements here that technology really needs to be used from the socio-technical approach. And that will give us two kind of aspects here, technology for management, but also technology for teaching. And then when we look here on the organizational aspect, and theories of organization and also of pedagogy. So we need actually to find a good balance combining these two aspects, that the school needs to move in a way that the pedagogic approach will give inputs about what the school wants to be in the future, but also the organizational theories need to have a role, very, very important role there. We also found that a leadership, or the school leader, is a relevant, one of the most important aspects in this kind of school, and small schools like the one that we are working. So actually we moved to what kind of actions can we take? And we said like developing these leadership competences is the most important, I believe, and has been the most challenging, because we really need to convince the leader to change, to learn something, and the change should come from him and not external. We have proposed that he could take some online courses that we could also support from the distance. The other change, or the other action that we are proposing, is to change the organizational culture by creating platform, actually, an online platform about creating and collaborating, creating knowledge, and sharing knowledge. So actually that is one of the actions that we have. Right now we are with Sandra and Nilo, that is here, are two students from Denmark that they came to develop actually this platform. We really want that the platform will respond to the needs to the teachers, that we will really have a user-centered approach for develop that, and also experience design, that the teacher really will find a good experience by going there and share knowledge and create knowledge. And then the other aspect is to try to influence the motivation of the students by keeping the focus and the goal. And that is the kind of really good action that we will like to develop. And we are in a standby in some way there, because we were expecting to have collaboration also with some students from the university. But when we just discuss this kind of complex situations, so it's not actually that easy to meet all the expectations from the students, also the school and so on. And it's a project that we really don't have resources, and that it will be also actually a situation that will be very normal for the schools because they don't have resources neither. So just to finish, I have half minute to finish. So just I think that's what we have learned here so far is actually that this complexity theory could be, and I say it could be because as I mentioned before, we are still in analysis, a good way to approach and to understand the problem, to identify where and how the system interacts. Identify these key nodes to approach, also look at the organizational aspect, it's really important to create a partnership with universities or other institutions, because there is a lot of different roles to move here. I mean, we just saw 4 big fields, theoretical fields about how to do this, and of course the schools, they will not have the knowledge. And then be very clear that some of these processes are change, and we need to use the theoretical framework for that. It's still, when it's a school, it's not pedagogical. So we need to combine these 2 theories. I mean, bring the pedagogical aspect, but also the organizational change aspect. Thank you very much.